There is an ongoing currency war, and countries are aligning to a new world order which is imminent, and in fact, it could be decided by whose currency is the most powerful in the world. At the center of this currency war is the United States of America dollar, the USD, which has been the primary reserve currency globally since the end of the Second World War. In fact, the US dollar has been very strong, leaving little room for other currencies to grow as alternative monetary systems, and this has been the problem. More so because the United States of America has been the most powerful nation in the world for over 70 years. Sadly, most people born past the 1950s in the US think this is how and exactly how it's gonna be going to the future. Sadly, not. You see, there exist cycles to this world power thing and to the most powerful nation globally, which the US has been since the end of the Second World War. But before the US, Britain was the most powerful nation globally for over 20 years. And even before Britain, the Ottoman Empire was controlling the world. This dates back to many years ago. Believe it or not, even Netherlands was at one time the most powerful nation in the world during the Dutch Empire between 1581 and 1795, when they began the first ever stock exchange in the world, the Amsterdam Stock Exchange. They established best universities in the world as of then, which have actually stood the test of time and are still leading in science and technology. I'm saying all this for you to understand that what has a beginning has an end, and looks like the US dollar is under a spell which it most likely won't survive. It is a question of when, not if. But when did the rain start beating the United States of America? Over 40 years ago. And sadly, the US has on some occasions fumbled and done rain check instead of having solid plans to cement itself as the most powerful nation globally for the longest it can be. Right now, it is getting stretched and stretched year in, year out. Looking back, the mistrust with the United States of America began when US was at the helm of the world. In 1971, when then President Richard Nixon closed the gold window in order to address inflation in the US and prevent foreign governments from withdrawing more and more dollar for gold. You see, the US dollar was the main currency utilized globally, and countries got it from the US by depositing physical gold to the US gold reserves. In essence, all dollars in circulation had backing of this precious metal. But all this came to an end abruptly when President Richard Nixon decided to shock the world in the morning of 15th August 1971. All these in the interest of the US. Fair enough, but also other countries have their own interests. With this, there began being mistrust with the US. Of course, the mistrust has been growing and growing over the years. As the Fiat Money era began, in essence, the era of money where individual currencies were printed by governments out there, and governments declare these currencies to be countries' legal tender without backing of any precious item. This is money because government says so. Simple as that. It looks okay from the face of it, but there exists the big problem. For example, with over $2 trillion worth of the US dollars notes in circulation globally at this particular point in time, that is close to 3% of the annual global economy worth. And in fact, half of these notes are circulating outside the USA, and they are being used as reserves and also being used for day-to-day trading in multiple countries. What if the USA reverses its fiat legality? In essence, one morning the US wakes up and say, for example, the US dollar is no longer its legal tender. What will the world monetary system look like? Which currency will serve as the global reserve currency? All these are questions that have been lingering in leading economists' minds and also the minds of governments out there for decades. More so, even the superpowers out there globally have been very cautious with regards to the US dollar and what it means actually to the global economy. And that's why conversations around, for example, cryptocurrency, i.e. building a value system which is different and has a different kind of trust beyond just government saying this is legal tender and so forth, have materialized over the years, spinning over thousands of cryptocurrencies and alternative coins out there. Of course, most of them are experimental, but over time, we could see such form of trust even being adopted by nations out there. And also, that is why a good number of countries, for example, China, Russia, you name it, have been very suspicious of the United States of America and stayed neck to neck with any science and technology advancements made by the US and also neck to neck with its growth economically and in any front out there, because they want to stay to par and even catch up, or even best yet, bypass the US as the leading economy and the most powerful nation in the world. But what exactly is currency war? And most importantly, what is the end game of a currency war? You see, currency war is an escalation of currency devaluation policies among two or even more nations out there, each of which is trying to stimulate its own economy. Currencies prices fluctuate constantly, of course, because of the foreign exchange market. However, in a currency war, it is marked by several nations simultaneously engaging in policy decisions aimed at devaluing their own currencies. And of course, nations out there devalue their currencies primarily to make their own exports more attractive on the world market. We all know the world market has been moving towards the east because of better economies of scale, because of better labor when it comes to manufacturing and so forth. Of course, guys, forget all the economic jargon I've talked about in this definition. A currency war is basically countries joining hands to fight a given currency. It is as simple as that. And with the end goal of them gaining economically and of course the other country suffering. Sadly for the US dollar has been under threat for a long time, and looks like now is when other powerful nations are waging more serious currency war against the US dollar, which has been the world's reserve currency for the longest. And just to give you all examples of these instances, that is economic war against the dollar with the end game of the USD being dethroned are, first of all, China's economic maneuvers in Africa. Guys, China has penetrated Africa, and of course, this has left Western nations to play catch-up. China has invested heavily in infrastructure development in the continent of Africa, and of course, provided financing to all these anchored on a Chinese yuan, meaning that is the currency of business and repayment. Interestingly, China has also been growing faster economically compared to the US over the past decade. This tells you that at the constant growth rate, China is going to surpass US in all the frontiers when it comes to growing economically, which of course spells doom to the USD, as China is going to get more traction, and of course it might be the most powerful nation globally in the next couple of years, right? Secondly, given the US defense budget is already strained, and as a nation, the US is bleeding. Look here, guys. The US is pumping over $800 billion to defense annually. This tells you that just a single wrong move, or the US joining a physical war and getting overpowered, will spell doom to the US and the US dollar. Should a new world order be established through aggression? The US knows this very well, and that's why it is cautious not to fall for any such trap, because it knows already its defense budget is overstretched and its people are also feeling the economic heat. And lastly, we are witnessing agreements for use of additional currencies beyond the USD as alternative reserve currencies in some countries, and even a few superpowers are coming together to plan to develop on joint currencies. For example, the Russia adopted renminbi, whose basic unit is Chinese yuan, as one of its main currencies for international reserves. All this to beat the Western sanctions to the nation. Beyond that, we saw press releases in recent weeks of the BRICS, that is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa alliance, and of course other countries are also coming on board to fast track working on alternative reserve currency that would actually rival the US dollars and even the likes of the International Monetary Fund's special drawing rights, the SDR. This is well-coordinated effort to revamp the global monetary system, no question about it, and looks like more is in the offing. With the US economic fortunes dwindling over the years as some superpowers pass it when it comes to economic growth, it is inevitable that we're gonna see other forms of reserve currency coming up. Of course, they're gonna be mutual understanding around adaptation, whether it is through consensus or even aggression, but this is meant to happen. Just to conclude, you need to understand that, guys, it is inevitable that the world will have and is gonna agree on alternative reserve currencies. From the East, most likely, BRICS have stepped up their quest, and even the 15th BRICS leadership meeting is planned to take place in August of 2023 in Durban in South Africa. I'm very sure this is going to spin some agreements that might shake the world's financial and monetary system. What do you all think? Ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, but fasten your safety belts, because the currency war is about to be taken a notch higher. And of course, the US dollar is bound to be the casualty in this. What do you all think? Thanks a lot for watching this video. I look forward to share with you other awesome videos next time. Cheers, and you all stay safe.